Film God familia, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo estás? How are you? Big love. What are you saying? It's Isusko, aka the Time Scheduler. This is the Film Gods podcast that you have managed to find at exactly the right time for you. You lucky, lucky, lucky people. So for all of you first-time listeners, hello. Thank you so much for giving us your attention, your time, your energy. For all of you long-time listeners, we love you. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for being who you are, for enjoying what you hear, and for messaging. And it's beautiful. It's just such a lovely community that we're building. And I really, really, really want to thank you all for coming back week on week. Our guest today, I had the very special privilege of shooting out in Africa with her on the last of the Grand Tours, which was one of the largest Amazon shows, headed up by the three amigos who came from the Top Gear days. And it was an episode that I really wanted to have, because I'm kind of relatively new to that faction entertainment side of telly, and hearing someone that's been in it but come out of it, gone back into it, and ended up on one of the largest shows on the planet, and then also been taken onto the next show of Jeremy's, which goes from strength to strength. I just wanted to have some positive energy. And I know that there's been a few people that I've asked to come on and they haven't felt like it was right because they haven't been working much, and they'd probably be a little bit negative. So speaking to people that are on these shows that grace our televisions, series after series, that's the energy, that's the positive love that I want to be getting out there. And we are going through something as an industry, and it's funny how if you are working you feel lucky, whereas most people go to finish work on a Friday and it's their happiest that they've ever been, and then that Sunday night they're dreading going back in on Monday. It's like there's industries out there that are, people are really excited to get to work, really excited. And I think the film industry is one of those. And if you've been blessed with work this last 2 years, well done. Keep going. Spread that love. Keep your people. If you're an HOD and you can keep your people in work, bless you. And so we come to another episode. It's been fun this year. This has given me something to hold on to keep my toe or toes dipped in the beautiful bubbling stream of the creative industries. And it keeps me talking with people, with friends. It keeps my eye on what's happening globally. And that's been really fun to just expand my horizons beyond the British film industry. And so for all of you listening, thank you. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for listening. From all of us here at the Film Gods, we love you. And let's get straight to the ep.
Ladies and gentlemen.
So, Film Family, we are back doing one of the old school eps where we talk to a legend in the game that is at the height of the industry, making products and shows and content that you all know, that you'll all love. And I was very, very blessed a few years ago to spend a good 3 or so weeks on a shoot with our guest. And it in those moments you get to have conversations and you get to understand people more than when you're just on set for a day and all it is rushing around. So I'm so grateful and honored that she said thank you. Sorry, that she said that she would come on and be part of this, and I thank her. So without any further ado, what is your name and what is your role on the call sheet?
Oh, thanks, Cisco. My name is Zoe Brewer, and I am, as of 3 months or so ago, executive producer on the call sheet.
Congratulations.
My sort of history of the last 10, well, probably 20 years is director of production, and that's where I'll always be in my heart. And so I thank you for having a production person on here, because we are the unsung heroes.
So production, I did. When I was at uni, I did kind of 2 years in-house, low-budget production at a company called Chris Horton Films. And we were the little piranhas. It was the little thing. And there was never a moment that people would knock on the door and go, thanks so much for having put together. It was just, oh, we're missing this, we're missing that. So yes, from an AD's perspective, without the back-end team doing everything pre-shoot, there would be no shoot. So thank you. And I would love to just ask that kind of initial question of kind of going, were you always destined for the film industry, or did you get in, did you always want to be something else? So what was that first little role? What was that first job? What was that first moment that you went, oh, I like this industry?
Yeah, I think when I was, in my teens, from a creative side, I was definitely wanted to be sort of on the sort of camera directing side of things. And I actually moved schools to do media studies A-level, because back in the day, that was the first school that did it. And went to the National Film School for a course. And then my first job was, I did some running, and then my first proper job was as an edit assistant on 16mm Steenbeck, cutting and splicing. And then having spent 6 months in the dungeons, decided that was not what I wanted to do. No. And I went into production and discovered that that's really, where I was meant to be. I'm an organizer. I get things done. Then I went, my first job was Hat Trick Productions, and sort of did the circuits really and worked my way up. Nice.
And is that entry level job in that production team, did you always kind of think, was director of production a role at the time, or is that something that you grew into and kind of created for yourself?
Yeah, I think, it's like everything, the titles have become grander and grander over time.
Behind majesty of call sheets.
Exactly. So, production manager was my ultimate dream, which I became at 24.
Oh, wow.
And then head of production. And then there was head of production when I then left TV and went to have children.
Yes. Legends. Who I've had the privilege of working with. Absolutely. Yeah. And I love the names. That's the thing. It's like you've got a very creative family, even from naming of children and naming of husband to it's like there's only one industry that you were ever going to work in.
I know they have followed in our footsteps. But I left TV, and thought I should bring up children rather than being in the office at 9 o'clock at night. Never actually planned to come back until Andy Willman called me,
the legend,
10 years ago, and said, we're starting a new show on Amazon, and will you come back? So kids were bigger then, and I thought, well,
And that's one of the show that we're talking about probably came off the back of three men talking about cars, and it being one of the largest, most institutional shows. I was never a big car fan, but for all of those big car fans, there was a real gap in that market. And someone coming to you, I don't know how many years out it was, but that gap between working in an industry that you loved, taking time out to then go and do something that you loved, Was there ever a part of you that you're like, fuck, I don't, the industry's changed too much? Was there any kind of thought process where you're like, I'm just going to stay at home and not go back in because it's changed too much? Or what was that? What was that initial? Were
Well,
there any fears?
I had never had any intention of going back, but once I sort of got it in my head, I was like, actually, this is going to be a challenge. I love a challenge. And of course, things had moved on. The last show I delivered was on a digibeta.
Wow.
And then, we're in sort of learning about HDR, but it's all from production's point of view. It's different words and it's different formats, but it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And, it's sort of looking back on it as like, oh my God, I'd gone into this massive new show for Amazon, massive budget. It's not like I'd gone back onto Antiques Roadshow or starting small. But that's where I thrive. That's I loved the challenge of it.
It was. Can we say the name? Can we talk about it? Yeah. Okay. Fine. So the Grand Tour. I was very blessed to have worked with you on that last Zimbabwe, Botswana. Friends of mine that AD'd it weren't available, and I got the call, and it was just an amazing experience to be on, because from a production point of view, on most films or most kind of long format, which this was, because it was like an hour and a half, I think it was nearly an hour and a bit, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You would, actors, and you'd have sets and locations, and you build things and everything's, and it's structured, but you had 3 men in 3 cars that shouldn't have been able to drive on these roads, and they could break down at any time. I mean, from a production point of view, you probably have to have so many plates spinning, because it's like, well, we might get to this point, but actually it may break down there. So we need to have somewhere for lunch here and somewhere for lunch there. How do you, at that scale, how do you even do you have to just segment it, or you just trust the team, or how do you get something like that, an episode of that magnitude and scale in another country? How do you get it off the ground?
Well, we have a pretty long pre-production period, 6 to 9 months. And, the thing is, the story is constantly evolving over that time as well. So, you come up with a whole plan, and it's a journey. So you're never in one place for more than a couple of nights. So, there's huge pie charts and grids of hotels that are available in every city around that country. And, production are there to sort of then, once they're like, right, we're going here now, not there. It's like, okay, let's feed into that set of information. And I mean, in fact, in the earlier days of Grand Tour, I think people used to pull my leg with it, because the directors would sit behind me and say, oh yeah, we're going to dangle Jeremy out of a helicopter over some sharks, and and then he's going to fall in, and Richard's going to swim in, and it's like, but sometimes it's like, yeah, it's real. I'm not joking now.
No, we are. No, this is exactly
we're really doing that. And every time you sort of see, right, this is the place we're going to, there is a sort of like, okay, could we at least sometimes go to somewhere where there's some roads or hotels, maybe some like food, water, fuel, but Zimbabwe, that was not the case.
No.
So it's a massive thing to sort out, but for me, it's the easy part compared to the editorial. Like, them working out the story, that's the hard part. Then it's like, fine, we'll go into action. You need to be there then at that point. We need to feed this many people. We need to make sure we have fuel, and we need to make sure that it might be there or it might be there. So we've also got all of that ready there. So it's a big machine, but a huge machine. But what helps is that all the crew and production and editorial that worked on that show were amazing and top of their game. And so that, even when you're working out rig days, that sound are going to talk to mini cams, who are going to talk to cameras, who, so that everybody's working out what they need to do at what point. So that's one sort of bit that's taken away from us. So, we just need to make sure everybody is fed and watered, and the petrol, that's important, obviously.
Yeah, I think there was times that we were kind of driving around. We're like, okay, well, that we've just because there was like a convoy of
Yeah.
I can't near
25 plus cars, and like
oh,
you see that going across,
huge, just going
desert.
across the desert and the salt pans
Mm.
and I think that's the beautiful thing about the industry that we work in, and especially the format that you specialize in, is that the the content, the imagery, the show that you're making has to be it has to kind of improve. Not so much get bigger, but there's certain times that you're like, right, well, we've done that. Now we need to find something else, and that ever evolving need for something better and bigger and improving. It seemed like that's what the show did from its early days when it was at the Beeb to then becoming what it was. Um,
Yeah, but I think what
did your experiences grow with that same level, or was there just a little bit more pressure and stress?
the reason why the show maintained its popularity is because while the locations and things we were doing were bigger and better, what maintained is that actually it is, as you say, it's three slightly overweight blokes in slightly shonky cars driving around, and they might break down. And what's different for this as opposed to a drama is if they do break down, that's then part of the story.
Mm.
So you then follow that. You don't need to say, right, everything stops for 5 days while we fix the car. If the car needs to be towed, that's part of the story. So from an editorial point of view, that's great. From a production point of view, when the director's on the radio, it's like, that lunch you've just spent 3 months setting up in the middle of the desert, we're not going there now.
Yeah, we can't make it.
We want to go to that place over there in half an hour, okay?
Yeah. The ability to think on the feet, I think, is something that the film crew, and especially a crew of that experience, that just, as you said, when the show started, there was probably individuals that were single with no children, and by the end of that journey, the end of that show, there was partners and children, and there was just so much had happened, and it was such a well-oiled machine, but two, such a close-knit family that it really did feel like you were coming into something very, very special.
Yeah, and I think the boys are all very loyal to the crew that have been with us. Some of them, back to the beginning of Top Gear. And we do, call ourselves as dysfunctional family because we've all got something about us. But, because of that, we all accept our little idiosyncrasies. And at the end of the day, all really respect each other. And I think, that's what keeps it together. It's the glue that holds it together, is that everyone knows everyone is really good at their job, and it's going to be sorted out. If it all falls apart, it will be fixed again.
And it's that ability to flex when needed, to roll with the punches, to just. I'm not sure there are many other industries and personnel that the military is obviously one, but there's comparisons to the military and the film industry that go back way. But you kind of think, well, we had this large unit of people traveling through deserts and jungle and over mountains and through water and over, like, the ability to just go, everything's going to be fine. That's where we need to get to, and let's have some fun on the way. That's what I think distinguishes maybe film crew from just sitting in an office, everyone getting stressed about the emails that are coming. It's like, no. There's this ability, there's this passion that we have. And was there ever a point that you kind of missed that when you were bringing up the kids, when you were having that kind of, when you're doing probably one of the most important jobs on the planet, which is bringing human lives into this world? Was there parts of it that you missed? Was there anything that you kind of were like, oh, I just love that, the misfits and my dysfunctional family? Did you ever miss them?
Well, I think what I was doing before I had kids was much more sort of selection. So, it's quite a kind of fluid industry in sort of TV, and that you're even more so in commercials. You'll be on a job for 3 months, and then you go to the next and the next and the next. And I did work with Jeremy and Andy before I left to have babies, but I think the dysfunctional family thing was sort of what came after that. So, and also you just sometimes, even though there's like craziness going on, you just stop and it's like, look where I am. Look where I am, you know, and what other job is going to take you around the world, getting into places where no one else has access, seeing, you know, these incredible things. And I sort of just feel privileged to have been part of it, really.
That is so true, that doors are opened to film crew that are closed to the general public, and rooms. We did a thing a couple of years ago in Malta. It was like this, we're in this palace, and there was this room that no one could go into. It was like, it's full of, you know, it's like no one could go in there just to walk and look, but they allowed a film crew to go
Yeah.
in and stick lights and people and thing. You're like,
Yeah.
it opens up special doors. It does open up special doors. What was your? I mean, I'm probably getting a little bit too historical here, but was there a kind of grand tour job or country or moment that was a highlight?
I think that would have to be Colombia. We did. I mean, just amazing scenery, laced with complete criminals and drug barons. You know, it kept you on edge.
Yes.
So, but yeah, Colombia was, you know, amazing scenery, and yeah, we got to go up to a volcano, which I now can't remember the name of, which was not active, but had been not so long ago active. So the top part of it was not accessible to anyone ever. So it was like being on the moon. Yeah.
Wow. And what was and then just driving down the side, and oh
Yeah.
mate, amazing. And then so we started and I want to get a nice kind of sense and feel of role of director of production, because there's an AD in commercial, you don't really have that role. You know, as you said, you got a production manager, and they probably do it all. But what differs from the production manager to director of production at the level that you were at?
Well, I think it's you know, it's that sort of overseeing of things. The production manager is more boots on the ground. You know, he or she, mostly she, is you know, organizing stuff and making sort of in the mechanics, the cogs of everything. And then I'm there to sort of like firefight when things go wrong, or to, you know, be able to sort of, when they can't work out how to do something, and hopefully I'll be able to give them some more insight into how to work that out. And particularly on this show, big part of my job was insurance and health and safety and all the fun stuff.
Yes.
And, you know, because we were breaking barriers of filming editorially, we had to do that with production as well. So, you know, so continually just coming up with new ideas. It's like, you know, there's nothing hard about TV, but sometimes you just got to make shit up. And it's like, okay, this has never been done before. How are we going to feed and home 120 people in the middle of the desert? Okay, we're going to set up a massive site. So I would say, let's set up a massive site, and then someone else will go and do it. I suppose that's the difference between.
Nice.
But sort of always constantly, like, I don't feel of myself as like an executive type person up there. I've always been sort of boots on the ground. In the early days of Grand Tour, there was only 2 production.
What?
two girls, me and my production manager, and
Wow.
100 blokes. And so I would say to her, I am your head of production. I'm also your co-ord. So let me to book some hotels for you.
Oh my goodness. What was the size crew at that time? Was it did you have the kind of four cameras, five
Yeah,
cameras,
yeah,
full
yeah,
sound, full everything? It was,
yeah. We probably
wow.
grew, probably not so big as the one you did. We grew a
Yes.
bit, but it was still 80, 90 people, I would say.
Wow. How did you do it? Just two of you?
I don't
I,
know.
I don't understand. That's so much work to do for, yeah, I mean, it was so much work to do for an army of production,
Yeah,
but two of you, you're just like, you're eating here and you're
yeah.
sleeping there. That's it. There are no options. If it takes you 2 days to get to the hotel, that's it. We'll see you on
Yeah.
Tuesday.
Yeah, no, but it wasn't. We had to, there's certain expectations
Yeah.
in the crew, to stay in nice places. It's like
Mm.
sometimes you have to stay in somewhere that's, a bit shitty because there's nowhere else. But yeah, I think I like to sort of, lots of people sort of call me mum, in that I'm work mum. So I kind of see that as my role, really. I'm there to sort of help out when things go wrong or you don't have the answer.
And that kind of matriarchal figurehead at that kind of top of production. Are you looking at the kind of the generations coming up, and are you seeing the same things happening as when you were working? As things improved? Is it have we pushed on? What differences do you see from when you were starting looking at people at head of production to what you're trying to then create in your company?
Yeah, well, I think I sort of coming up the ranks always saw my sort of level as person as petrifying and scary. So has always been my kind of ethos, is like I'm fully approachable, I'm fully here, I'm fully
Mm.
on your side. Don't be afraid to ask me something if you think it's a stupid question. And I think, generally in the industry, sort of, the bullying, etc., which still goes on, was even worse back then. And, sort of what I like to think is on the shows that I work on, that is just a complete no.
Mm.
Everyone looks after each other, everyone's approachable. And, we're all one team, one dream.
That's it. And there's,
Um,
things, tempers will get frayed at times. Sleep was difficult. There are going to be
yeah,
moments that people aren't themselves, but knowing and having an acceptance that things can go wrong and tensions can flare, but at the end of the day, being able to sit down and calmly just go, I apologize. I'm sorry. Thank you. So, that kind of family unit, because it is a family going
yeah,
on a job for that length of time. And you see it on feature films. It's, 5, 6 months away with people. There are going to be moments that, not everyone's going to be your best mate. And that's part of it. But having a top down attitude of calmness, kindness, empathy, and a holistic approach to production, that can only be a great foundation for everyone to just be able to get through the job, or just to come out and have some really wonderful memories, because that's the most important thing. It's work. We're
yeah,
going to work. It's not life and death for most parts.
yeah.
And we should be having fun. It should be fun.
And for everyone to feel safe as well. I mean, I think there was, sort of coming into the show as a sort of the only woman in a kind of higher sort of level.
Mm.
And so I feel like as an achievement that I have made is over the years is to sort of make sure that I will have a word with that director when his shooting schedule even start. It's like you can't start at over 12. If we get over 12 when we get there, then that's fine. But let's start at 12. My biggest achievement is I got rest days put in the schedule,
Yay!
which were not there before. And also to just make sure when it is the end, after 3 weeks of everyone working so hard, not having enough sleep, there's a good old party at the end.
That's
Very important.
Just to be able to just let loose, let
Yeah,
the steam out, and everyone just hug, high five, have a drink, have a chill, and not have to do a schedule or a car plan or something for the next day
exactly.
is always
Exactly.
wonderful. Yeah,
And
that's
I always sort of explain it as like childbirth, because when you're in it, you're like, I am never fucking doing this again. And then, like a few months down the line, you're like, oh, that was only cute. Should do another one. And you
still
forget
another.
all the bad stuff, and you remember all the amazing times with your amazing dysfunctional family and the scenery and how lucky you are to have done that. And you're like, yeah, I'll do another one.
So true. It's childbirth. Not that
Yeah.
I'll never experience it. I'm going to take your word for it, but well, look, we kind of get to this point and it's about 45 minutes. And it's been such a lovely, rounded, beautiful episode. Thank you, firstly, for kind of coming on and for sharing your experiences of how you do it. And actually, the most important thing that I'm taking from this is that actually, from a top down perspective, having people at the top like yourselves that aren't trying to do 18-hour days with no rest days to try and beat the crew up, that's very, like, really, really super appreciated. So thank you from a crew level up. Thank you. And we always get to the end of the episode and there's two questions that we always ask. We'll end with just your kind of acceptance speech, because I think I saw that. I think the episode's up for a Grammy, an Emmy. I think it's up for something, so you might
Is
win
it?
the something.
Oh,
But the second to last ep, we ask a question, which is advice to younger self, and there's kind of two moments from what I've heard that I'd like you to kind of give some advice to. Actually, no, let's go with the one which is the most important, and it's you've started off, you've gone to, you did your A levels, you went to the NFTS, who I must say didn't accept me on their course. So that's. But I was young and I wanted to be a producer. But you've done the NFTS, you got in at production companies and worked your way up, and you spent a chunk of your life, and you gave a chunk of your life to an industry. Then the opportunity to become a mother was presented to you and you took it wholeheartedly. That phone call you had when they were trying to pull you out of motherhood to go and start this journey of production on a very large Amazon show. What would you now say? You've just that younger you's just had the phone call and the phone rings and it's you now talking to them. What would you say to that person?
if I was trying to persuade someone to come back, or if it's,
Just
yeah,
what would you say to them?
I think that I'm a great believer in karma, right? I
Hmm.
had no intention of going back into TV, but I probably was getting itchy feet to do something. And so when a phone call like that comes, I feel it comes for a reason.
Hmm.
And of course, there was hesitations and I thought about it and we had a few conversations. And I also had to explain to my husband, I was like, this is for 3 years. That's me. That's me.
I'm out. I'm done. I'm tagging you in.
Bye.
Yeah, they like school lunches on a Monday and Wednesday, and
Yeah,
they got football on a
exactly.
Friday. Yeah.
Exactly. All of that. But I just thought this is the next move that's come to me. So I'm going to take it. And I'm so glad that I did. And I think Andy in all his charm was like, we need someone to keep us in line, and you are the bossiest person we know. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to take that as a compliment. You've got me. I'm in.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
and so you get that phone call. What is your advice now? Now that you had that experience, and the ups, the downs, the missed lunch opportunity, you know, all of those moments. What advice do you now have for your younger self?
I think it's a cliche, but go with your gut and know what's right. And you know, there's a lot of big characters in TV, and it's hard, particularly on production, to hold your own because editorial always wins, right? But when you're faced with a decision, you know, regular on this show, like production wanted to spend 20 grand on doing something. I need 20 grand to pay for an air ambulance because we're in the middle of the desert. And you've got pressure, but it's like, no, I'm doing this. You know, my job is to make sure nobody dies and we don't get sued. So
simple.
Yeah.
No pressure.
Yeah. But it's hard. It's hard, you know, but yeah, that's, you know, stick to your guns. That would be my advice.
Amazing. Wow. Amazing. So last question, how can people reach you? Insta, is there anyone that you want to say thank you to? It's kind of your acceptance award speech, so I push myself away from the mic and I give you the floor.
Okay. I think much as I would give him a hard time, and I hope he doesn't listen to this because we don't say it to each other, but I've got to thank Andy Willman. You know, he like I say, he's the most loyal person, and he believed in me enough to call me, having been out of the industry for 10 years, and bring me back in on his show, his baby, massive budget on Amazon, no sort of interview or anything. It's like, come back, like get a checkbook and a photocopier and set up the company. I'm like, okay, a few other things. So, and you know, throughout that time, we would often have words with each other, but you know, I knew at the end of the day he would always have my back, and he's, you know, he is brilliant editorially, and so I will always respect that, and I will always thank him for bringing me back into what was an amazing experience.
Shout out to Mr. Andy Wellman. Big up. Well, ladies and gents, woo! Film God, round of applause. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your open and honest conversation about what you do, how you do it, and how you got here. I really, you've been so busy with the new show and with everything that you're doing. So thank you for carving out 45 of your wonderful minutes to come and talk to us. Ladies and gents, like and share, subscribe, and until we meet again, that is a wrap. So that was a chat with the king or queen in the game. I'll give it a shout at the end so you all know the name. It's the Film Gods Podcast. The what? The Film God Podcast.